The cold wind moved slowly through the broken alien market, carrying dust and silence with it. Most of the shops were empty, and the few that were open looked tired and lifeless. Nothing here felt alive anymore. Only survival remained, a human. Trader stood behind a small metal table, counting his food supplies carefully. He did not have much. Just a few pieces of dry bread and some water. In a place like this, even a single piece of food could decide who lived and who did not. He had learned not to trust anyone, not to feel anything, because feelings were dangerous in a place where hunger ruled everything. As he finished counting, he felt something strange. Someone was watching him. Slowly, he looked up. A small alien girl was standing in front of him. She was very thin, her clothes torn and covered in dust. Her eyes looked tired, but they were not empty. They were holding something quiet, but powerful. In her hands, she held a small doll. It was old and damaged, but she held it carefully, like it was the most important thing in her life. She did not speak at first. She just stood there, looking at the human. The human sighed softly. He had seen many like her before. Hungry children, desperate faces, silent. Begging, he tried to ignore her and looked back at his food, but she did not move. After a few seconds, she finally spoke, her voice very soft, almost breaking. "My doll. For your bread, human. Please." The human stopped moving. Her voice was not like the others. There was no loud begging, no crying, just a quiet request. He looked at the doll again. It was clearly valuable to her, not because of its condition, but because of what it meant. "You want to trade that for bread?" he asked calmly. She nodded slowly, but her eyes were not fully on him. They kept moving, glancing behind him again and again. That made the human feel uneasy. "Why do you keep looking behind me?" he asked, narrowing his eyes. The girl froze for a moment, then she shook her head quickly. "No danger, please. Just bread," she said. But something was not right. The human had survived long enough to understand fear, and this girl was not afraid for herself. She was afraid for something else. Slowly, the human turned his head. At first, he saw nothing, just broken walls and scattered trash. But then, he noticed movement near a pile of debris. Hidden in shadows, there was another small figure, a smaller alien girl. Even thinner than the first one, she was crouched on the ground, weak and shaking. And then the human saw something that made his chest tighten. The little girl was pulling at the ground, grabbing small pieces of grass and dry plants, and she was eating them, not slowly, not carefully, but like she had no choice, like this was the only thing keeping her alive. The human froze completely. This was not normal hunger. This was something deeper, something worse. This was the kind of hunger that came when there was nothing left. He slowly turned back to the older sister. She was now looking down, unable to meet his eyes. "My sister. She is hungry," she whispered. The human looked at the doll again, then at the weak child behind him. Everything suddenly felt heavier. The cold market, the silence, the empty shops, all of it made sense now. People here were not just poor, they were disappearing. The human's hand moved slowly toward his bread. But then he stopped. His mind began to fight itself. If he gave food, he would have less for himself. If he helped them, he could become weak too. In this place, kindness could kill you, but still, he could not forget what he had just seen, a child eating grass to survive. The older sister finally looked at him again. Her hands tightened around the doll. "My doll. For bread. Please," she said once more. Her voice was shaking now. The human said nothing, but inside, something was changing. Because this was no longer just a trade, this was a choice. And whatever he decided next would not only change their lives, it would change his too. The human stood still for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the small piece of bread in his hand. The cold wind moved around him, but he did not feel it anymore. In front of him, the older alien girl waited silently, holding her doll close to her chest. Behind him, the younger sister was still on the ground. weak and slowly pulling at dry grass. Everything felt heavy. The human closed his hand tightly around the bread. His mind began to speak in a cold and careful voice. You cannot help everyone if you give food. You lose your chance to survive. This place does not forgive kindness. He had learned these rules the hard way. Days without food, nights without safety. Watching others disappear because they trusted too much. He looked at the older girl again. Her face was calm, but her eyes were tired. She was not crying, not begging loudly. She was simply waiting. That made it harder. Go find someone else, the human said quietly. His voice was not angry, just distant. The girl did not move. I have nothing else, she replied softly. Her fingers tightened around the doll. For a moment, the human felt something twist inside him, but he quickly pushed it away. He turned his back to her, trying to end the moment. I cannot help you, he said. Silence followed. No crying, no shouting, just silence. That silence felt louder than anything else. The human started walking away, step by step. Each step felt heavier than the last. He told himself not to look back, not to think about them. But then, he heard a weak sound behind him. A soft thud. He stopped. Slowly, he turned his head. The younger sister had fallen to the ground. Small body too weak to hold itself up. The older girl quickly ran to her, dropping to her knees. Stay awake. Please stay awake, she whispered, her voice shaking for the first time. The human watched silently. The older sister lifted the little one's head gently, trying to keep her conscious. It's okay. I will get food. Just wait, she sighed, but her voice did not sound confident anymore. The human's chest felt tight. He had seen people collapse before, and he knew what came next if no food came soon. The little one would not get up again. The older sister looked around desperately, but no one came forward. Other aliens in the market watched from a distance, but they quickly looked away. No one wanted to get involved, because helping meant risk, and risk meant death. The human knew this feeling well. He turned his head again, trying to walk away once more. But something stopped him, a memory, a long time ago, before this broken place, before survival became everything. He remembered being hungry, not just a little hungry, but the kind that made your body shake. He remembered searching for food, finding nothing, feeling weak, alone, forgotten. And then, someone had helped him, not because they had extra, but because they chose to share. The human took a deep breath. His hand slowly opened, revealing the bread again. This is not the same, he whispered to himself. This is different. I cannot save everyone. But even as he said those words, his feet were already moving. Step by step, he walked back toward the sisters. The older girl looked up, surprised, her eyes wide with a small spark of hope. The human stopped in front of them, looking down at the weak child in her arms. Without saying anything, he broke a small piece of bread, not all of it, just a little. He held it out. The older sister stared at it for a second, as if she could not believe it was real. Then she quickly took it, her hands shaking. She gently placed the bread near her sister's mouth. Eat slowly, she whispered. The younger girl moved weakly, taking small bites. Even that small piece of food seemed to bring life back into her eyes. The human watched silently. Something inside him felt both heavy and light at the same time. Older sister looked at him again, her eyes filled with quiet gratitude. Thank you, human, she said softly. Then she slowly held out the doll. For the bread, she added. The human looked at the doll, then back at her. For a moment, he said nothing. The wind moved again through the empty market, and in the distance, shadows began to shift. Unseen eyes were now watching them closely, because in a place where food meant power, kindness had just made the human a target, and danger was already coming closer. The wind grew colder as the human stood there, watching the small alien child take slow bites of the bread. Each bite looked like a fight, as if her body had forgotten how to eat properly. The older sister stayed close, supporting her carefully. Her eyes never left the younger one, full of fear and hope at the same time. The human looked around the broken market again. Something had changed. The silence was no longer empty, it felt heavy. Like something was watching from every direction. He noticed movement in the shadows, shapes hiding behind broken walls, eyes observing quietly. He understood what that meant. Food had been seen, and in this place, that made him dangerous. Or a target. The human's hand slowly moved toward the rest of his bread. Only a few pieces left. If I give more, I may not survive. His thoughts were sharp now, trying to protect him. If I stop now, they might still have a chance. He looked at the older sister again. She was still holding the doll out toward him. For the bread, she said again softly, her voice respectful, not begging. The human stared at the doll. It was small, broken, and worn by time, but it was clean, protected. This was not just a toy. This was memory, family, love. Something inside him shifted again. Why are you still offering this? He asked quietly. The girl hesitated for a moment. Then she answered, my mother gave it to me before she disappeared. Her voice became slower. She said, no matter what happens, I should keep something that reminds me of home. The human listened without moving. Then why give it away? He asked. The girl looked down at her younger sister, her hands gently holding her close. Because she is more important, she said simply. No hesitation, no doubt. The human felt those words deeply. In a world like this, most people held on to what little they had. But this child, she was ready to lose her last memory, just to save someone else. The human looked away for a moment, his mind growing louder. This is not your problem. You did enough. Leave now. But another voice spoke quietly. You know what happens if you leave. He closed his eyes for a second, and suddenly memories returned. Dark nights, empty stomach, weak body. The feeling of being alone in a world that did not care. He remembered the moment someone had helped him. A stranger, a small act, but it had saved him. He opened his eyes again slowly. The alien girl was still there, still waiting, still offering everything she had. The human took a deep breath. Then he made his decision. He reached into his bag and took out another piece of bread, then another, more than before. The older sister's eyes widened in shock. You do not have to, she started to say, but the human raised his hand slightly, stopping her. Take it, he said simply. No. Trade. The girl froze, unable to understand at first. But the doll, she said, holding it forward again. The human shook his head slowly. Keep it. The words were calm but strong. The girl's hands trembled slightly. No one gives without taking, she whispered. The human looked at her. Some do, he replied. For a moment everything became quiet again. The older sister slowly pulled the doll back, holding it tightly, as if afraid someone might take it away. Her eyes filled with something new, not just relief, but belief. She quickly broke the bread into small pieces and fed her younger sister carefully, making sure she did not eat too fast. The little one's strength slowly began to return, her breathing becoming more steady. The human watched silently, a strange feeling growing inside him, something he had not felt in a long time. Purpose. But then a sound broke the moment, a soft step, then another. The human's body became alert instantly. He turned his head slowly. The shadows were moving closer now, no longer hiding. Figures began to appear from different directions, thin, dangerous, desperate, scavengers. Their eyes were locked on the bread, on the human, on the sisters. The human's hand tightened, his body ready. He understood the situation clearly now. His choice had been seen, and in this place, helping the weak did not go unnoticed. It invited something else, danger. The older sister noticed them too, her face filled with fear again. She pulled her younger sibling closer. The human stepped slightly in front of them, not as a hero, but as someone who had already made his choice. The wind howled louder through the broken market, and the scavengers began to circle slowly, because now this was no longer about hunger. This was about survival. The wind grew louder, pushing dust across the broken ground. The human stood still, his eyes moving from one shadow to another. They were no longer hiding. Thin figures stepped out slowly, their bodies weak, but their eyes sharp and hungry. Scavengers. In this place, they were the ones who survived by taking from others. They did not wait. They did not ask. They watched, they followed, and when the moment came, they took everything. The human counted them quickly. One to the left, two near the broken wall, another behind a metal frame. More could be hiding. He slowly adjusted his stance, placing himself between the sisters and the approaching danger. Behind him, the older alien girl held her younger sister tightly, her breathing fast, her hands shaking. "Human," she whispered, fear clear in her voice. The human did not look back. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. His voice was calm, but firm. The scavengers moved closer, step by step. Their eyes locked on the bread in the human's bag. One of them stepped forward, taller than the rest, his face covered in scars, his expression empty. "You are new," he said slowly, his voice rough like broken metal. The human said nothing. "You do not understand this place yet," the scavenger continued. "You show food. You lose food." A few others laughed quietly. The human's grip tightened, but his face remained calm. "This is not yours," the human replied. The scavenger tilted his head slightly, then smiled, but there was no kindness in it. "Everything here belongs to those who can take it," he said. The air felt heavier. The older sister slowly reached for her doll again, then looked at the human. "You should go," she whispered. "They will hurt you." The human heard her, but he did not move. "If I go, what happens to you?" he asked without turning. The girl said nothing. That silence was the answer. The scavenger leader noticed this exchange. His eyes moved toward the sisters. "Ah, so this is why you stay," he said. He took a step closer. Two weak children, and one human trying to play hero. The others moved in slowly, forming a loose circle. The human's heart beat faster, but his mind stayed focused. This was not a fight he wanted, but it was coming anyway. The older sister slowly stood up, still holding the younger one. She stepped forward slightly. "Take the doll," she said, her voice shaking. "But leave us." The scavengers paused for a moment. Then one of them laughed loudly. "A doll?" He mocked. "We cannot eat a doll." The leader's eyes remained on the human. "We want the food," he said simply. The human finally spoke again. No, just one word. Simple, clear. The wind seemed to stop for a second. The scavengers looked at each other, surprised. No one said no to them, not here. The leader's smile disappeared. "You think you are strong," he said slowly. "But strength here is not about fighting." He raised his hand slightly. "It is about numbers." At that signal, the others stepped closer, their movements faster now. More aggressive, the human took a small step forward, blocking their path completely. Behind him, the older sister pulled back, fear growing in her eyes. The younger one held onto her weakly. The human's voice came out low but steady. "Last chance. Walk away." The scavengers did not stop. One of them rushed forward suddenly, trying to grab the human's bag. The human reacted instantly, pushing him back with force. The figure fell to the ground. Coughing for a brief second, everything froze then. Chaos began. Two more rushed from the sides. The human turned quickly, blocking one and striking the other away. He was not the strongest, but he knew how to survive. Every move was careful, controlled. Behind him, the older sister gasped. More footsteps echoed. More scavengers were coming. The circle was closing. The human realized the truth. This was not just a small group. This was a pack, and they were not going to leave empty-handed. One of them grabbed a piece of metal, raising it like a weapon. The leader stepped back slightly, watching, waiting. The human's breathing became heavier, his body tense. He knew he could not fight them all, not for long. Behind him, the older sister whispered softly, "Why are you doing this?" The human did not answer, because even he was not fully sure. But he knew one thing: he had already made his choice, and now there was no turning back. The scavenger with the metal weapon stepped forward, raising it high. The others moved in at the same time. The human prepared himself, but just before the attack landed, a new sound cut through the chaos. A single sharp voice from the distance. "Stop!" Everything froze. Even the wind seemed to pause. All eyes turned toward the source of that voice. A figure was standing at the edge of the broken market, watching them, silent still, and something about that presence made even the scavengers hesitate. The word "stop" still echoed in the cold air. For a brief moment, everything stood still. The scavengers froze where they were, their eyes slowly turning toward the edge of the broken market. The human did the same, his body still tense, ready for the next move. From the shadows, a tall alien figure stepped forward, its movements calm, controlled. It was not like the others. Its body was thin but steady, its eyes sharp, not hungry, not desperate, but aware. It looked at the group, then at the human, then at the two sisters behind him. The scavenger leader frowned, clearly annoyed. "This is not your matter," he said coldly. "Leave." The new alien did not move. "It becomes my matter when you break the last rule," the figure replied, its voice low but powerful. The scavengers shifted uncomfortably. A few of them stepped back without realizing it. The human noticed that this figure had some kind of authority here. "What rule?" the leader asked, though his voice was less confident now. The alien stepped closer. "The rule of survival," it said. "We take from those who resist, not from those who protect children." The market fell silent again. The human felt something change in the air. The scavenger leader looked around. He could see hesitation growing in his group. "They are weak," he argued, pointing at the sisters. "They will not survive anyway." The alien's eyes hardened slightly, and because of that, "You choose to finish them faster," it replied. No one spoke after that. The human stayed ready, but his focus shifted. This was no longer just a fight, it was something else. A decision spreading through the crowd. More figures began to appear in the distance, aliens who had been watching silently until now. They were not stepping in yet, but they were no longer hiding either. The balance was changing. The scavenger leader noticed this too. His jaw tightened. "This human has food," he said louder, "more than enough to share. But he chooses only these two." A few scavengers nodded, trying to regain confidence. The human finally spoke. "It is mine to choose," he said simply. The words were not loud, but they were strong. The tall alien looked at him for a moment, as if studying him. Then it nodded slightly. "Yes, it is," the figure said. That small agreement changed everything. The scavenger leader realized he was losing control. "Fine," he snapped. "Then we take it anyway." He gave a sharp signal with his hand. This time, they did not hesitate. Two scavengers rushed forward again, faster than before, one aiming for the human, the other trying to move around him. The human reacted quickly, blocking the first and pushing him back. But the second one slipped past. The older sister gasped. The scavenger reached toward her, trying to grab the bread. But before he could touch her, the tall alien moved fast, much faster than anyone expected. In a single motion, it stepped in front of the scavenger and struck him down, not with rage, but with precision. The scavenger fell hard, unable to stand again. The entire market went silent. The message was clear. This was no longer allowed. The remaining scavengers hesitated, fear now replacing their earlier confidence. The human took a step forward, standing stronger now. He was not alone anymore behind him. The older sister held her younger sibling tightly, her eyes wide with shock. She had never seen anyone stand against the scavengers like this. The leader looked around again. This time, more aliens were watching openly. Some even stepped closer, not to attack, but to witness. The leader understood what was happening. If he continued now, he would not just fight the human. He would face the crowd. His power came from fear, and that fear was fading. He slowly lowered his hand. "This is not over," he said. Quietly, his voice no longer strong. Then he stepped back, one by one. The scavengers followed him, disappearing again into the broken shadows. The dangers slowly faded, but the tension remained. The human did not relax immediately, his body still alert. Only when the last scavenger vanished did he finally breathe out slowly. The tall alien turned toward him. "You made a dangerous choice," it said calmly. The human nodded slightly. "I know," he replied. The alien looked at the sisters, then back at the human. "Most would not do what you did," it added. The human glanced behind him, at the small child now eating safely. "They should," he said quietly. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the tall alien stepped back around them. The watching figures slowly began to move again, but something had changed. They were no longer just watching. They were thinking. The older sister slowly stepped forward, still holding her sibling. She looked at the human with eyes full of something new, not just gratitude, but trust. "Human," she said softly. The human turned toward her, but before she could say anything more, a distant sound echoed through the market, low, deep, like something much bigger was coming. The tall alien's expression changed instantly. "That is not good," it said. The human's eyes narrowed. "What is it?" he asked. The alien looked toward the dark horizon. "Something worse than scavengers," it replied. And in that moment, the human realized this was only the beginning. The deep sound rolled across the broken market again, low and heavy, like the ground itself was warning them. The human turned toward the horizon, his eyes searching the dark distance. "What is coming?" he asked, his voice serious. The tall alien did not answer immediately. Its sharp eyes focused far away. Then it spoke quietly. "Collectors." The word felt cold. The older sister moved closer to the human, holding her younger sibling tightly, her face filled with fear again. "Who are they?" she whispered. The tall alien looked at her. "They take what they want. Food, supplies, and sometimes people," it said. The human's jaw tightened. This place was already cruel. But this sounded worse. Another deep sound echoed, louder this time. The ground vibrated slightly under their feet. "They are close," the tall alien added around them. The market began to change quickly. Aliens who had been watching before now started moving fast, some hiding, some running. Fear spread like fire. The human looked at the sisters. The younger one was still weak. Even after eating, they could not run far. "Is there a place to hide?" the human asked. The tall alien nodded. "There are tunnels below the market," it said. "But not everyone reaches them in time." The human did not hesitate. "Show us," he said. The tall alien paused for a moment, as if making a decision of its own. Then it turned and started moving. "Follow me," it said. The human picked up his bag quickly, then looked at the older sister. "Stay close," he told her. She nodded, her grip tightening around her younger sibling. They began moving through the broken paths of the market, stepping over debris and old metal. The sound in the distance grew louder with every step. Heavy machines, slow but unstoppable. The human glanced back once. A dark shape appeared far away, moving between the ruins, large, mechanical, searching. He turned forward again, walking faster. "Why do they come here?" the human asked as they moved. The tall alien answered without slowing down. "Because no one protects this place," it said. "And fear makes people easy to control." The words stayed in the human's mind. Fear, he had seen it everywhere here. People watching, but not helping, surviving, but not living. They reached a narrow entrance hidden between broken walls. "This way," the tall alien said. It moved aside a piece of metal, revealing a dark opening below. Cold air came from inside. The human looked down, then at the sisters. "Careful," he said. The older girl nodded and slowly climbed down, holding her sibling tightly. The human followed. Then the tall alien closed the entrance behind them. Darkness surrounded them. Only faint light came from cracks above. For a moment, no one spoke then. The younger sister made a small sound, a weak but soft voice. Warm. She whispered. The older sister smiled slightly. Yes. Safe, she replied, though her voice still carried fear. The human sat down nearby. Catching his breath, the tall alien stood quietly, listening to the sounds above. The heavy machines passed over the market, their presence loud and terrifying. Dust fell from the ceiling as they moved. The human clenched his hands. This place. It will not survive like this, he said quietly. The tall alien looked at him. It has survived. By staying silent, it replied. The human shook his head slightly. That is not survival, he said. The words hung in the air. The older sister looked at him. Her eyes thoughtful now. You helped us. Even when it was dangerous, she said. Human looked at her. I did what was right, he replied simply. She hesitated, then slowly held out the doll again. For the bread. And for helping us, she said softly. The human looked at the doll, then back at her. He gently pushed her hands back. No, he said. You keep it. The girl frowned slightly. But we must give something. She insisted. The human shook his head again. Not everything needs a price, he said. The tall alien watched this exchange silently. Something in its expression changed. A small shift, but important. The older sister slowly pulled the doll back, holding it close. Her eyes filled with emotion. Then, thank you, she said. The human gave a small nod. For a moment, everything felt quiet, not empty, but calm. Above them, the sound of the machines slowly faded. The danger passed, but something else had changed. Not just for them, for the whole market, because today, someone had stood up, someone had refused to follow fear, and others had seen it. The tall alien finally spoke again. Your actions will not be forgotten, it said. The human looked up. I did not do it to be remembered, he replied. The alien nodded slightly. That is why it matters, it said. The older sister looked between them, then at her younger sibling, who was now resting peacefully for the first time. There was hope in her eyes, real hope, and in that dark tunnel beneath, a broken world. Something small but powerful had begun to grow, not fear, not survival, but something stronger, the beginning of change. The silence inside the tunnel felt different now. It was no longer filled with fear, but with quiet breathing and slow recovery. The younger sister slept peacefully in her older sister's arms, her small chest rising and falling gently, for the first time since the human had seen her. She looked safe. The older sister sat against the cold wall, holding her tightly, as if afraid this safety might disappear at any moment. But her eyes were no longer filled with panic. There was something new there, hope. The human sat a short distance away, resting his back against the rough stone. His body was tired, his arms slightly injured from the fight. But he did not complain. He simply watched the sisters quietly. The tall alien stood near the entrance, listening carefully to the world above, making sure the danger had truly passed. After a long moment, it finally spoke. They are gone, it said calmly. The human nodded slowly. Then people will come out again, he replied. The tall alien looked at him. Yes, but not the Kundia. Same as before, it said. The human did not ask what that meant, because he already understood. Something had changed, not just in this place, but in the people who lived here. After some time, they climbed back up to the surface. The broken market looked the same, ruins, dust, silence. But the feeling was different. Aliens slowly began to return. Stepping out from hiding places, they looked at each other, and then at the human. No one spoke at first, but their eyes were no longer empty. They had seen what happened. They had seen someone stand against fear, someone protect the weak. Even when it was dangerous, the older sister walked beside the human, still holding her sibling, her steps slow but steady as they moved through the market. Others began to notice them. Some stepped aside, not out of fear, but out of respect. The human stopped near his small table. Looking at what little food he had left, it was not much now, but he did not regret it. The older sister stood in front of him, her eyes serious. "I do not know how to repay you," she said softly. The human looked at her. "You already did," he replied. She looked confused. "I gave you nothing," she said. The human shook his head slightly. "You trusted me," he said. The words were simple, but they carried weight. The girl looked down for a moment, then slowly nodded. She reached into her small pocket and took out something tiny, a small, smooth stone. It was not valuable, not special, but she held it carefully. "This is from my home," she said. "My mother gave it to me before everything changed." She placed it gently on the human's table. "For you," she added. The human looked at the stone, then at her, this time. He did not refuse. He picked it up slowly. "Thank you," he said quietly. The girl gave a small smile behind her. The younger sister opened her eyes slightly, still weak, but alive. She looked at the human and gave a faint, soft smile, a simple expression, but full of life. The human felt something warm in his chest, not pride, not victory, but something deeper, meaning. The tall alien stepped forward again, looking around at the gathering crowd. "They watched you," it said to the human, "and now they will remember." The human glanced at the others, at the faces slowly changing. Less fear, more thought, maybe even courage. He took a deep breath, then began packing his things. "You are leaving?" the older sister asked quietly. The human nodded. "Yes," he replied. "This place needs people like you," she said. The human paused for a moment. Then he gave a small, calm answer. "No. It needs people like you." The girl looked surprised. "Me?" she asked. The human nodded. "You chose to save someone, even when it cost you everything," he said. "That is where change begins." The girl held her sister a little tighter, her eyes thoughtful. The human turned and began to walk away slowly. No big goodbye, no long speech, just quiet steps into the distance. The older sister watched him go. "Humans are strange," she whispered. Then she smiled softly, but kind. Around her, the market slowly came back to life, not just with movement, but with something it had forgotten long ago, care and far away. As the human walked into the fading light, he did not look back, because he already knew, that day. He did not just feed 2 starving children, he reminded a broken world that kindness still had power.